Hi, I'm Jet Kuso. Geogon are here, and a lot of people are concerned. So what the heck are these things? And what has everyone in the Bakugan community so worried? Warning, this is the most critical video I have ever made, but I hope it'll be taken as constructive feedback and not just complaining. And hey, while you're here, only a small number of people who watch my videos are subscribed, so please click the subscribe button to help my channel grow. I have a lot of good and bad to touch on, but before all the opinions, let's do what you came here for and give a nice, neutral explanation of the newest Bakugan toy. What are Geogon? To put it simply, Geogon are a brand new ability card type with a line of accompanying game pieces for the Bakugan Pro TCG and toy battling game. Geogon are being called a subtype of normal Bakugan, and from what little lore we have, they're an ancient type of Bakugan from an era before they evolved into spheres. As such, Geogon come in a vast number of smooth geometric shapes: cube, drum, egg, cone, and spike blob.
And tetradecahedron.
No! Okay, so not all of them are perfectly geometric. The point is, they're not spheres. We're not talking about this, or this, or this. We're talking about this! Just like a normal Bakugan, when these shapes drop onto a metal Baku core from above, they explode into an even wider variety of unique monsters. Look at these guys. We've got a Manticore cube, a Shenron drum, the green slime pentagonal pyramid, the Tarakawa egg, the Shoggoth blob, and many more to come. They're pretty cool looking, massively varied, and way more interesting than most of the Trap Bakugan from back in the day. Trap Bakugan are from Legacy Season 2, Nuva Stroya. They were the first time we ever saw Bakugan that weren't round, and their mechanic was to change a Bakugan's attribute to one of your choosing. There's an interesting feature you might notice when looking at a Geogon. Unlike Trap Bakugan, which had multiple attribute symbols revealed when they opened, and unlike Bakugear, which had nothing printed on them, Geogon all possess a printed B power. The printed power level corresponds with the B power for their base Geogon cards, which look like character cards, but have the same red backing as any other ability card. These Geogon cards go into your deck like normal. Let's talk gameplay. Rather than explain it, let's run through a full turn using a Geogon. You and your opponent are engaged in a battle. You've rolled and stood, your opponent's B power is higher than yours, but lucky, you drew a Geogon card at the start of your turn. Geogon cards play exactly like reroll cards, but rather than re-rolling your Bakugan, you temporarily replace your Bakugan with a Geogon for this turn. After paying the energy cost, your Bakugan is retracted, and you play your Geogon by dropping it onto the hide matrix from one card length above the field, or higher if you choose death. You can drop it onto any core and keep any cores the Geogon grabs. If you're utterly incompetent, you might miss with your Geogon and it won't open and you'll lose the turn, but come on! It's not hard unless you have a restrictive disability, in which case I'm just in general sorry for Bakugan as a whole. After landing, you continue the turn with the Geogon as your monster instead of the Bakugan you had rolled. Any B power boosts you play give the B power to your Geogon, and everything else continues as normal. Once the turn is over and all damage has been dealt, your Geogon is retracted and its card is placed in the discard pile until you play another card to summon it again. Yes, in the current rules, you have to use the toy that corresponds to your Geogon card in order to play said cards. Just like normal Bakugan, and unlike Bakugear, the character cards and toys are intrinsically connected. So how do you deck build with Geogon? In the Legacy series, there was a limit of 2 large support pieces per deck. So like 2 Trap Bakugan, or 2 Battle Gear, or 1 Trap and 1 Battle Gear, or 1 Trap and... Just like any ability card, you can have up to 3 copies of the same Geogon card in your deck. But, okay, here's the kicker. You can have any number of Geogon cards in your deck that you want. This has utterly terrifying implications, but we'll talk about that in a second. To wrap up, Geogon have the potential to be quite powerful and even quite essential to gameplay moving forward. Not only do Geogon act as temporary one-turn generic evos, but every Geogon card is a core stealing card like Consort, and also a no skill required reroll card. These effects come baked into every Geogon, making them stronger and more useful than their base stats might make them appear. It can't be understated the power of the ability to grab cores from your opponent's side of the field and put them in places that are impossible to reach by standard rolling. Grabbing an enemy magic shield for yourself early in the game can utterly cripple an unprepared player, and the only good defense is the ability to steal it back. Basically, only Chaos had this ability before, with Consort and Glimmering Glaive, the latter of which is considered a very strong card precisely because of this power. I'm not saying every Geogon is as good as Glaive, but it could represent a fundamental shift in gameplay, now that every faction will have easy access to this ability. Is it possible to learn this power? Not without a Geogon. This is, of course, speculative. We don't know exactly how Geogon will affect the meta until more of them are revealed and people start playing with them. Hopefully, in my opinion, they won't be big time useful as it seems like they will be. So let me tell you what I think about Geogon. I like them. I don't like that you have to use the toys to play the cards, and I'll explain why in a second, but let me take a moment to make it clear that I really dig the toys. They're way better looking than Trap Bakugan were, I love the monster designs, and I like that they come with translucent parts on every single one. They're baller toys, no pun intended, actually. I scripted that line. Not intending it as a pun, but here we are. I think most of the Bakugan community will be excited to collect them. They look really snazzy, and there's even snazzier ones on the way. No. The toys are not the problem. Even the rules as they are now might not be a problem, but the implications of Geogon are scary nonetheless. I'm going to present what I see as both sides of the argument and try to come to a middle ground, starting with, this marks the end of Bakugan, and it'll end up just like the Legacy series. Too Much Junk is number 6 in Kodak's absolutely brilliant series on the 7 deadly sins of TCG design. Put simply, he argues that a normal TCG should require no more game pieces than a deck and some dice to play. When a player has to carry, keep up with, and buy much more than that, the game quickly gets confusing and unappealing to general audiences. Now, a lot of people are gonna say, well, Bakugan already requires you to use toys to play. That's the fun of it. Why does it matter if you have to use one extra toy now? One exception Kodak mentions, if the teleprompter would move on. One big exception Kodak presents are games that use a skill check mechanic. Interesting skill-based components can justify extra game pieces, so long as the skill check is challenging and fun in itself. Bakugan fits the bill better than any other game out there, and even more so in Bakugan Pro than ever before. Geogon, on the other hand, do not contribute to Bakugan's skill check in any way. In many ways, they hurt it by making the head-to-head roll at the start of the turn completely pointless if you intend to play a Geogon that round. Not only do Bakugan require skill to roll, but their particular differences in shapes and mechanics can contribute immensely to each and every roll. This justifies the requirement of using the Bakugan toy that corresponds to its card. In contrast, it doesn't really matter what Geogon you drop onto the Hide Matrix. All of them are gonna grab cores just as well as any other, and dropping a Geogon only presents a skill challenge to people who can't stand up, don't have depth perception, or have a disability. To anyone able-bodied, it's easy as cake. Any challenge or variation that could arise is utterly negligible. The lack of a meaningful skill check is going to make carrying a Geogon feel like unnecessary weight and complexity, and even more so, an unnecessary paywall in front of a mechanic. Players may pull a full playset of a Geogon card from booster packs, but if you want to use it in the game, you better go buy the toy first. The toy won't contribute to the gameplay in any meaningful way, and you might as well drop a refrigerator magnet onto the field to get the same play pattern. But the rules say you have to buy the toy. Needless to say, this will not go over well with kids or young adults on principle. But hold on, it's not just as bad as only needing to carry one extra toy with you. One extra toy isn't a big deal, but if you want to play 2 Geogon cards in your deck, you'd better be ready to carry around 2 toys that don't contribute to gameplay. 3 Geogon cards? Well, now you have just as many Geogon as you have Bakugan. You better start carrying your deck in a storage case if this goes any further. What's that? Geogon won't fit in a storage case? Or a Baku clip? Haha, well the joke's on you. It's Ziploc deck box time to shine.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine, and you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
That's the argument against Geogon. So what's the counter argument? Oh my gosh, chill. It's probably not a big deal. Trap Bakugan and Battle Gear were never a big problem in the Legacy series, and they didn't hurt Bakugan's sales or meaningfully hurt the game mechanically. The only problem with those support pieces is that they were inherently power creep, which Geogon aren't. If you don't want to use Geogon, you probably don't have to. Just like people who don't like using Bakugear cards or Evo cards. If you don't like them, just don't use them. The real problem support pieces were Baku Nano, battle suits, mobile assault vehicles, Dragonoid Destroyer, gauntlets, etc. These things were so big and expensive and stupid, and Bakugan hasn't done anything like that in the reboot. Notably, Dragonoid Infinity and Dragonoid Maximus. You don't have to use those in the game, they're just there, they're just toys, and you get cards from them. There's no reason to think they're gonna do it differently. Most Geogon don't even look competitive, so it's not that likely you'll see a deck using more than a couple. All this stuff about decks popping up that need 10 Geogon toys is nonsense, because as far as we can tell, that deck wouldn't be good. As for this fear about things going the same direction as the Legacy series forever, with more and more support pieces being added, that's a slippery slope fallacy. Nothing implies it'll go any further than this, or that they'll even make more support pieces past this. Don't be so worried, and try to have fun with it. My actual opinion! You probably expect me to hate these, right? I've been a vocal opponent of support pieces for years. I've said some pretty hardline stuff on the topic, and I might have gone off on a several thousand word rant in the Zoom chat during the 2020's Invitational event. Sorry about that, Spin Master. To some degree, I agree with both of these perspectives. On one hand, I'm really worried for what could happen, but on the other hand, nothing that bad is happening right now. I want Bakugan to be a more pure game than it was back in the day. Something solid that can stand the test of time, rather than relying on gimmicks that don't support the core gameplay appeal of the series. A high-ranking executive might look at this and ask, why would we sell toys that kids can't use in the game? Bakugan has gotta sell toys, yes. This brand is always going to rely on that to make the money it needs to support itself. But to that executive, I'd like to warn against anything that shakes people's faith in the stability of the game. Bakugan is driven by its game, so you must maintain the strength of it at all costs if you want to create a long-term evergreen brand. A majority of Bakugan released aren't good stat-wise, but people still buy them with no intention to ever play them in the game. Geogon are cool, and cool factor sells. Also, just like, you can make kids use them in the toy battling game, just don't add more nonsense to the TCG. It's simple. So what does this mean? The toy requirement is enough to shake my faith a bit and get me worried, but not near enough to push me away. If Geogon aren't fun in the TCG, I'm just not gonna put them in my decks, and it probably won't be a big deal. If they keep the game strong, I bit my tongue.
It's all going wrong right at the end.
Oh my gosh, I've been doing so good. This has been the cleanest shoot ever. Jeez. If they keep the game strong, with a solid, unwavering vision, the brand will stay strong and the toys will sell. That said, I do think a few rule changes could be made that would totally fix the issues with Geogon. But I think that's a story for another video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button for any other video I put up in the future. That's what I think about Geogon, but I want to know what you think. Do you think Geogon are bad for Bakugan, not that big of a deal, or somewhere in the middle? Post a comment below. Seriously, post a freaking comment below. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at JetKuso, and thank you to VeronOC, The One Only Prime, Shevidus, Sierra107, Chell, Nicholas Matrix, and Jedi Master for supporting the channel on Patreon. You too can help support my content at patreon.com/JetKuso. We're only a couple donors away from Awesome Bakugan Trick Shots 3, so I'm very excited to finally get to make that video once we get enough patrons. This is JetKuso, and I'll see you next time. Hook!